Are you getting all this? Whoa.
You know that Disney story where the princess kisses the frog and he turns into a prince? Yeah, this frog reverses that card. Kiss him and you might end up his brainwashed bride, or worse, a goo-covered frog zombie. Forget fairy tales. Frogman drags you headfirst into a nightmare where cryptids don't grant wishes, they collect wives. This is Frogman 2024, a mind-melting mix of the Blair Witch Project, Paranormal Activity, and The Shape of Water, if Guillermo del Toro was really unwell. The plot. While on a family vacation in 1999, 10-year-old Dallas Kyle captured footage of Frogman, a strange creature said to lurk in the woods of Loveland, Ohio. Although Frogman lore was long established in Loveland, first making a notable splash in 1975 when a local man named George Hale photographed it, Dallas's video was brushed off as a hoax. To this day, Dallas is still haunted by the memory of Frogman and the experience of not being believed even though he had evidence. Now in his 30s, Dallas's life is far from where he wants it to be. A struggling filmmaker with only 2 short films to his name, he's been crashing at his sister and brother-in-law's house for 2 years, while harboring an obsession with Frogman. Dallas decides to break out his Hi8 camcorder, the camera he was using when he caught that fateful footage, and return to Loveland to film a documentary about Frogman. Roping in his friend Scotty, a videographer, and Amy, an aspiring actor, he sets off on his quest to make the public see the truth. Frogman is real. After loading up their suitcases into Dallas's car, the 3 of them set off toward Loveland, completely unaware that what's waiting for them at the end of the road is going to change their lives forever. As they're heading out of town, Amy decides she wants to play a character for the documentary to make things more entertaining. Already, Dallas gets the sense that even his best friends don't take him seriously. Amy and Scotty start spitballing ideas for her backstory while continuing to poke fun at Dallas the whole time. Eventually, they settle on the idea that she's a country music singer working on an album about the Frogman. The only problem? She doesn't look the part. So the 2 of them pressure Dallas into pulling over at a thrift store to find her a costume. While Amy and Scotty goof around, picking out her outfit and cracking jokes, Dallas becomes increasingly frustrated with their antics. Eventually, they pull over at a gas station where Scotty asks Dallas what his game plan is once they reach Loveland. Dallas explains that he wants to start with some man-on-the-street interviews with the locals, and then try to meet up with George Hale, the only known Frogman witness, to get his side of the story. After a long night of driving, they finally arrive at the edge of Loveland, proud home of the Frogman. The crew begins by exploring the town for a while before arriving at the place where they'll be staying, the Bullfrog Bed and Breakfast. Inside, they're introduced to Gretel, the friendly old lady who runs the B&B. She's a big fan of the Frogman since the tourists who came to search for him are a major reason her business is still afloat. She even hands them a helpful pamphlet, complete with Frogman lore and a map marking good places to potentially spot him. The next morning, the trio hits the streets, with Amy leading the way and conducting in-character interviews with the locals. One particularly enthusiastic guy insists that the Frogman can read minds. After a while, Dallas grows fed up with Amy's fooling around and puts his foot down, saying he wants to take over the interviews from here. The townspeople don't seem as eager to talk with him as they were with Amy, but one local is willing to share a bizarre theory that the Frogman might be capturing human women to make them his brides. Later, they run into 2 guys wearing fresh Frogman hats, who point them toward a gift shop just up the street. The shop owner, Woody, is something of a Frogman expert himself. He gladly gives them a full tour of his collection, even showing them a Frogman flute, which he claims can be used to summon the creature. That afternoon, the trio finally arrives at Frogman Point, one of the locations marked on the tourist pamphlet as a potential sighting spot. Although the sign says it's just a mile up the path, they end up walking much farther than expected. The deeper they get into the forest, the stranger Dallas begins to act, wandering a few yards ahead of the group, as if under some trance. Eventually, the sun goes down, and the comfort of daylight fades into a dark, buggy night. Amy and Scotty suddenly lose sight of Dallas. Just then, they hear something large crashing through the brush nearby, but they can't determine what it is. Moments later, Dallas jumps out of the thicket and urges them to follow him off the path. Finally, they arrive at Frogman Point. At first, there's no sign of anything unusual, just local wildlife. But suddenly, Amy spots something in the trees. Sure enough, they see a figure that could be the Frogman. Without hesitation, Dallas bolts after it like a madman, eventually tackling the creature to the forest floor, only to discover it's just the guy from the gift shop, dressed up in a cheap Frogman costume. The man confesses he does this at night to keep the city's tourism industry alive. Furious, Dallas rips off the mask and throws it into the trees. The group heads back to town, frustrated and defeated. Back at the bed and breakfast, Dallas storms up to the front desk and immediately confronts the old woman for trying to play him for a fool. At first, she acts surprised, but when Dallas reveals that he saw the real Frogman as a child, her entire demeanor shifts, from sweet and friendly to cold and hostile. She tells Scotty to turn the camera off. Instead, Scotty holds it out of sight and keeps it running. He captures her, warning them in a clearly threatening tone to get out of town before something bad happens. Running out of the hotel, the trio decides it's time to finally visit George Hale, the other known Frogman witness, at his countryside home on the outskirts of town. But as they're driving down a dirt road into the forest, they're suddenly pulled over by the local sheriff. The man immediately begins giving them a hard time, accusing them of causing trouble in town and making it clear that they're not welcome in the community. Reluctantly, Dallas agrees to leave, just to get the sheriff off their backs. But the moment the cruiser disappears, he throws the car in gear and continues driving toward George's property. They eventually find the man's house. As expected, he's a strange old guy who values his privacy and only agrees to talk for a short while. Amy compliments a photo of George's granddaughter, but he quickly snatches it away without explanation. The picture clearly upsets him. Meanwhile, George grows increasingly irritated with Dallas, who's busy fiddling with the lighting for his shot. Eventually, though, they sit down and talk. Dallas asks about George's famous photograph of the Frogman. George explains that he and a friend had gotten lost while gathering mushrooms in the woods. They couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. When they finally made it back to their truck, they saw the Frogman standing a few feet away, staring at them under the glow of the headlights. According to George, the Loveland locals have mixed feelings about the attention the Frogman brings to their quiet town. When Dallas asks if there might be a Frogman cult, George realizes he's said too much and abruptly demands they leave. Scotty and Amy are more than happy to oblige, but Dallas pleads with George to help him find the truth. Feeling sorry for him, George hands Dallas a hand-drawn map. It's a guide to the Frogman's lair. Whether they're brave or foolish enough to seek it out is now up to them. It takes some convincing, but after finally getting the others to agree to join him, Dallas follows the road as far as it will take them. Then he grabs the tent, and the trio sets off on foot into the woods, with Dallas telling Scotty to keep filming no matter what happens. They wander along the trail for several miles in pitch darkness. Amy grows more nervous with every step, but just when she's about to voice her real concern, Dallas suddenly shouts that he's found something. They discover what appears to be some kind of green ooze clinging to the bark of a tree, about shoulder height. Amy insists it must be tree sap, but Dallas is convinced it's their first sign that the Frogman is nearby. For some reason, Scotty thinks it's a good idea to touch the stuff. Eventually, Dallas finds a place to set up camp. After pitching the tent, he tries to start a fire, but the wood is too damp. Frustrated, Amy shouts that she'll go find some dry wood and immediately wanders off by herself into the forest. Seeing this as a chance for Amy and Dallas to finally talk about their feelings, Scotty decides to give them some space. But instead of actually resting, he pulls out the Frogman flute and starts playing a tune, hoping to summon the creature. Instantly, all the frogs in the area start croaking wildly. Dallas, now excited, rushes back to the tent and tells Scotty he's found something. With Scotty running the camera, Dallas leads him to a spot where he's discovered a massive frog-shaped footprint in the mud. Scotty, thinking it's just a prank, storms back to the tent, but after they get there, they find even more of the Frogman's ooze smeared across the door flap. And there's only one explanation: the Frogman is close. That's when they suddenly realize they haven't seen or heard from Amy in a suspiciously long time. Dallas eventually finds her not too far away, but something's wrong. She's completely unresponsive, standing still like she's in a trance. Finally, Amy snaps out of it, but she's badly shaken and has lost track of time. Just then, they hear a deep, guttural croaking sound, echoing through the trees. Without hesitation, Dallas takes off running toward the source of the noise, with Scotty and Amy desperately trying to keep up. They manage to catch up just as Amy's phone dies, forcing Scotty to switch the camera from night vision over to flashlight mode. And that's when they see it. The Frogman is standing right behind them. Horrified, all three scream and take off in different directions, sprinting deeper into the woods. Unfortunately for Scotty, the Frogman decides to chase him. While he's hiding in a small dip in the ground, the creature lashes out with its sticky tongue, snatching the camera, and can be heard slathering Scotty in more of that disgusting ooze. Okay, well, I guess they got their proof now, but seriously, these three couldn't have handled the situation any worse if they tried. There you have it, folks. 3 fully grown adults with time to plan and everything, and they just lost a fight to a 4-foot-tall frog. Honestly, that's embarrassing. But more importantly, it was easily avoidable, and this next part goes out to all 3 of you when I say, you fucked up. They made the single biggest mistake you can make in a horror situation. They split up. Never split up. Unless, of course, you're using other people as meat shields. Rule number 2, never touch unidentified ooze in the woods. I'm looking at you on this one, Scotty, but it's a little too late for that now, I guess. The group officially has concrete proof that the Frogman can use mind control, especially after what happened to Amy, but now they can't even trust her, or themselves. If the Frogman can hypnotize you like that, they'll never know if they're chasing him or if he's just luring them deeper into another trap. Somehow, Scotty manages to get away and reunites with the others. The 3 of them bolt for Dallas's car. Suddenly, they spot the Frogman staring at them through the moonroof. Before they're even 5 minutes down the road, Dallas tells Scotty to hand over the camera so he can review the footage. He's overjoyed to finally have proof that the Frogman is real, even though it nearly cost all of them their lives. But what they don't realize is that the real nightmare hasn't even begun. The crew races back to the bed and breakfast, but when they arrive, the old woman is nowhere in sight. Scotty starts to notice strange boils forming all over his skin. Suddenly they hear chanting coming from somewhere beneath the floor. Following the sound, Dallas finds a large doorway leading down into a network of tunnels that stretch out beneath the building. Amy refuses to go. She's terrified, so Dallas and Scotty decide to go without her. After wandering through the dark for what feels like forever, Dallas and Scotty eventually arrive at a massive chamber. Inside, they find a group of hooded figures surrounding a young woman who's screaming for help. Suddenly, her face goes blank, and she falls silent. From their hiding spot, Dallas and Scotty recognize the old woman from the B&B. She's the cult leader. She begins reciting a strange ancient prayer, one that seems to be summoning the Frogman to claim this girl as his next bride. Then the camera begins to glitch, and out of a dark tunnel, the Frogman emerges. Just as he reaches the center of the ritual, a gunshot rings out, and the Frogman vanishes back into the shadows. It's George, disguised as one of the cultists, and now blowing his cover to break up the ritual. Total chaos erupts. Dallas and Scotty take off running blindly through the tunnels. They're nearly cornered by a cloaked figure who removes their mask, revealing some kind of horrific human-frog hybrid. They barely escape and run into Amy, who came to help after hearing the screaming, but now the 3 of them are completely lost underground. While trying to find a way back to the surface, they stumble into another chamber, this one filled with giant egg sacs. Dallas opens one. Inside is George's granddaughter, still alive, but before they can free her, she gives birth to a grotesque frog baby right before their eyes. At the same moment, Scotty begins to transform fully into a frog zombie. Dallas and Amy realize they have only one option: run. Before they get far, the Frogman corners them and blasts Dallas with his wand. But this time, Dallas is able to resist the vision, snapping himself back into reality. As he regains consciousness, he sees the Frogman dragging Amy away. Dallas grabs the wand from the ground and hits the creature with a dose of his own magic, stunning it long enough for him to rescue Amy. Eventually, the 2 of them run into George, who guides them back toward the surface. But George refuses to leave without his granddaughter and disappears back into the tunnels. Dallas and Amy finally make it back to the roadside. In the distance, they spot a town. Dallas still somehow considers this a win, but Amy collapses in guilt and terror, haunted by the friend they left behind. In the end, the police and pretty much the entire world refuse to believe their story. Scotty and George are never seen or heard from again, and eventually Dallas and Amy go their separate ways. The creature is still out there. Dallas turns the footage into his first feature film, and though it becomes a massive hit, most people still believe it's all just fiction. As he sits backstage, waiting to meet the audience after the film's premiere, Dallas draws the Frogman's wand from his pocket and wonders. Maybe this time he can prove the Frogman is real after all. Horrorcraft. The last 15 minutes of the movie felt like an hour, as it turns out to be much more sinister than you can imagine. The film leans hard into its found footage aesthetic. It's VHS core meets glitch core. The camera frequently malfunctions when the Frogman is near, which is either clever filmmaking or just an excuse to hide the budget. Either way, it works. The final act looks like it was filmed during a Tool concert inside a haunted septic tank. Visually chaotic, sonically stressful, beautifully unsettling. Acting and character behavior. The performances are mostly believable, especially once things go full frog apocalypse. Amy feels real. Dallas nails the paranoid documentarian vibe. The cult members, delightfully bizarre. And shout out to Grandma Gretel, who flips from Betty White to Satan's concierge in 0.3 seconds. Fear factor score. On a fear level, I give this movie an overall 6 out of 10, mainly because 80% of the movie is pointless goofing off and doesn't have any jump scares or creepy scenes until the last moments. The end scenes could come out of a heavy metal music video as the camera glitches and illusions appear due to the Frogman manipulating the camera and their minds. This made me think this movie is definitely a soon-to-be cult classic, and there's an audience that would love this movie. I highly recommend the movie if you're a fan of horror movies like The Blair Witch Project and Paranormal Activity. Even VHS has a similar fear factor that relates to Frogman. The era of real-time camera footage movies has passed its time. But Frogman definitely has an original concept. It isn't nightmare-fueling, and it isn't going to keep me up at night. But it will keep you in a weird, dystopian feeling due to the way the camera glitched in and out of reality, taking you to a place that only exists in your worst nightmares. Final verdict. Frogman is goofy, grimy, and weirdly charming. It's the kind of movie you show your friends at 1 a.m. and say, just wait till the end. Definitely destined for cult classic status, pun intended. If you like lo-fi horror with a Lovecraftian twist and a taste of swampy surrealism, this one's for you. Until next time, keep your doors locked, your flutes unplayed, and remember, if you see a frog standing upright in the woods, run. Hit that like button, comment, share, and subscribe.